Hello and welcome back to the Unstable Brew, where we discuss all things not quite normal brewing up in our lives, this world, and maybe even beyond. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Charity.
Let's get brewing.
Whoop, whoop.
Oh, that's so much fun to do.
I love being back at it.
Even though it's like just pre-recording.
I know, but it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm actually doing something again and having a hobby and having it just feels good.
It does.
It's like an outlet.
Good
an outlet
to have a hobby.
Yes.
It does feel good. Speaking of hobbies, I'm so proud of my little Pathos. She's doing so good.
Your plant? Has your cat tried to eat it anymore?
He hasn't. So I think Daxter's smart enough to not eat the plant. So I appreciate him for that, because I really don't want to have to deal with a fucking cat bill because of him. But he did end up digging into the pot again, so much so that I ended up having to put up a barrier to where he couldn't get to it, and then I did the whole aluminum foil trick on top of the countertops. It worked with him.
How'd that go?
It worked with him.
He just jump?
So we weren't home when it happened, but when I came home, one of the pieces of foil was like a good distance away from the shelf, and there was like little holes in it. So I can only imagine the hilarity that ensued.
You should have set up a camera just to watch this cat, and he'd jump and just boom.
Oh,
I love watching them just panic.
It was a missed opportunity. So over the weekend, I decided to repot, so fix her. I needed to clean her roots and kind of help, because Daxter ended up like 2 of the tendrils I had, he completely like dug out of the soil. So it only had like one itty bitty root just barely hanging on. So I was like, it's fine. It had root nodes on it, which means that I could just repot it and actually propagate. So I was actually able to turn my one little Pathos mama plant into 2 smaller children. And then I'm currently in the process of trying to make 2, 4, 6, 8 babies. And one of those babies has fresh new roots growing, and I'm just so proud of her.
I'm impressed.
So,
because see, I love plants.
And
I want plants. I can't.
You
said
know.
A lot of words. I know you won't let me have a plant.
You killed a snake plant.
I did not kill it. It committed suicide.
You killed a snake plant, and that's impressive.
It jumped off the counter and I didn't water it for a year. It was still alive, and then it flung itself off the counter.
You killed a snake plant, and you killed succulents.
I killed an aloe vera plant one time.
I killed an aloe vera plant, but that was because I was overwatering, and by overwatering, I was watering it too frequently.
I didn't water it at all. It just died in my presence. Just for no reason.
You're not allowed.
I did nothing to it.
You are not allowed to touch any of my babies.
I want a plant. I want to know how to plant, but it just goes over my head.
It goes over my head too, but I watch enough videos to at least give it a shot and figure this crap. Do you not realize me propagating the babies? This is my 3rd attempt. My 3rd attempt of me have clipped off little clippings off of my mother Pathos and attempting to propagate them. And I'm just now getting one of them to grow baby little roots. It's taken a little bit, and I'm hoping that the children thrive, because all I did was I just took tendrils, cut off the leaves at the end, and made sure there was enough of it with root nodes, and just put soil over it and food in there. So like, I'm hoping those end up surviving. I'm trying.
It's like in one ear and it's out the other. Like if I try to learn this stuff, it does not retain.
Clearly.
Does not retain.
Well, I'm trying to become a plant mom.
I'm proud of you.
I have asked
doing well.
a coworker, because I think I have like one of the I have a Pathos. I don't recall which breed I have, but there's like 6 or 7 different breeds of Pathos, and honestly, I'm like, at this point I want all of the Pathos. I think it's currently the plant that I really love, because it's fairly easy to take care of, especially if you're like newer to plant care.
Yeah.
And also it's an ivy plant, so like
They're
run
so
wild, my child.
See, and that's why I wanted to paint those, because they're supposed to be very easy for beginners. Mm-hmm. But they're so poisonous to cats, and my cat
are idiots.
Straight up idiot. I got one plant a long time ago. I don't remember what plant it was. And within an hour of having it, my cat had tried to eat one of the leaves, and it got stuck in the back of his throat, and I had to dig it out of his throat with my finger.
Smokey or Yo-Yo?
Yo-Yo.
He is the dumbest out of the three.
Yeah. No. Tiger.
Oh, she's getting there? She's a contender?
She's got street smarts. Not much else. So she can fight.
She can fight for her food, but like that's about the extent of what's going on in her brain.
I've seen her fight some toilet paper before, so that should tell you where she's at.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Well, now that I've gone on my unexpected tangent of plant care,
care.
I'm sorry. I'm really excited about one of my babies actually having roots growing, because it's exciting.
Yes, it is. It's good to have hobbies and outlets. Like, you have your plants. I have my running. I have gotten quite addicted to all of the different outlets on running. So like, I've been watching the Olympics specifically to watch like their form and how they run.
Yeah.
I'm on multiple Facebook pages for different types of runners, and I look up all of the information. I have an entire new list on Amazon of all of my running wants, along with an entire list of all of the different types of marathons that I want to do. Marathons cost money.
Yes.
And when I say marathons, I mean races in general. So everything from 5K to a full marathon.
Yeah, but you can pick and choose which ones you want to do. And the thing is some of the ones, I'm pretty sure, like, if you do well in, like, you can get some kind of payout or something.
Those are typically going to be like the bigger marathons, so like actual marathons.
Oh, like you're not going to try and go for, like, you're not trying to go for like the Boston Marathon level, are you?
You know, you have to actually qualify.
I know
I
someone.
didn't know that.
Yeah. Whenever I worked for AT&T, one of my coworkers, she's an avid runner. Like, we're talking about, she knows all of the techniques. She got a trainer. She was training to qualify for the Boston Marathon. Like, that is like her goal.
You had to qualify for certain types of races, and like now I do, but learning a lot of this stuff, it just makes me love it even more, because it's so much more than a sport. It's almost like an art form in how you run and how you train in all of it. And I was so proud of myself this weekend. I ran my first 5K in 5 years, because I used to run it a lot at our old neighborhood, because it was just so full with so many like curves and different, like, it was a
cookie cutter neighborhood.
It was a cookie cutter neighborhood, but there was a trail on the outside of it that I could also run to add in. So it was a lot easier to run a 5K without having to worry about being hit by a car.
Yeah.
So this is the first one that I've ran in 5 years, and while I'm a lot slower than I once was, I ran it in under an hour. So I was very proud of myself.
I'm tired and would like to keep moving on. Your hobby exhausts me.
It exhausts me too, but it makes me happy.
You know what? Whatever makes you happy. To be fair, what you just said, it went in one ear and out the other, because
that's how it was about plants. That's how I want to know about plants.
I don't.
But it's one ear out the other.
See, that's the difference. I don't want to know about running. I hear running and I'm like, ooh, that's exhausting.
It's so much fun. I will say this, and it's my last mention on the subject.
No, it's not.
It is. The female Olympic runner, the one that, gets so much crap because she wears long nails and she has her hair all done.
Oh, yeah. The one that got disqualified because she tested positive for marijuana, which I think is bull crap.
It is bull. But she's at least in there now. And she just ran and won gold in one of the relays. But watching her run is the most impressive thing I have ever seen. I would love to say her name, but I don't remember what it is. I just remember it starts with an S. But it's so fluid. How, I mean, literally, the upper portion of her body, other than her arms bumping, does not move. And her legs are just like on a wheel. They're just spinning. And it's so impressive. And so watching her, I'm just like, I want to be her when I grow up. She's like 5 years younger than me. I don't know. But yeah, it's impressive.
I mean, athletes are impressive.
Yeah. Athletes of all sorts.
Still exhausting. I say that though, honestly, if I had the current motivation to actually want to like work out or have some kind of workout, I would probably do something like kickboxing or just something to let out the aggression. Yes. I think would make me feel a lot better.
I looked up adult gymnastics in our area the other day because I'm like, that could be fun. We don't have anything like that in our area, so that sucks.
Small towns.
I know.
The good shit only happens in like major cities.
I want to start looking up adult classes in our areas though, just to see what, if anything, ever pops up. Could be fun.
I wish there was pole dancing near us. I would do that. I would do that again.
Yeah, but there is right near us. They have pole dancing. They have belly dancing. My mom did belly dancing at one point. I was very proud of her. It was a long time ago, though. Yeah.
We're going to have to look up that place because I would absolutely do pole dancing again.
Definitely.
Like, starting out when we did it in New Orleans, I very much went, oh, I'm not cut out for this.
It takes so much strength.
But I also know that it will build up a lot of core strength. And currently, that is what I'm in physical therapy trying to build up is core strength so that when my back doesn't hurt, so then hopefully my hips don't hurt, so then hopefully my left leg doesn't hurt. It's a domino effect.
You're just falling apart at the ripe old age of 31.
And that's just me physically. We haven't even gotten into the mentally part, which is the whole reason we're trying to record this episode.
So let's get into that.
We derailed hard.
Every time.
Apparently it's why people come in here.
Yep. Just listen to the chaos.
I guess. So let's actually get into the whole point that we're here recording again is deep diving into our own therapy journeys in hopes that it will give someone the courage to finally go, I need help.
We all need help. Have you seen this world? Have you seen this country? We all need help.
For many people, therapy is definitely a scary word for various reasons. It could be culturally unaccepted, viewed as unnecessary, or even weak by your family, and even just seem honestly just fucking scary to go talk to a freaking stranger. I mean, we want to break down the English words, we love it here. Today we just wanted to break down why we chose therapy and how we made it to where we are today.
Exactly. I mean, I know I personally chose it along the way because I saw the consistent toxic traits that ran in my family, those quote unquote generational curses, if you will. And I wanted to avoid that for myself. I wanted to avoid it for my future family and future children, as well as, I wanted to learn more about myself personally. And I feel like, well, yes, there are ways that you can do that on your own, just simply by meditating or spending time with yourself personally.
Yeah, but
there are things that a therapist will ask you that you've never truly thought to ask yourself.
Well, and I would say the whole, you could do it yourself thing, but it's hard to do it yourself when you don't even know where to start. And that's where a therapist can help you find that starting point.
Exactly. I mean, I know people who have had blocked memories that have come out in therapy. I know people that have had full revelations about who they are and why they do what they do because of therapy. And they're like, it's just, there were certain things that came out that wouldn't have come out in a logical sense of just me spending time with myself or just me talking things out with family or friends, because you're in a one-on-one situation with a third party who you don't have to worry about their feelings on the matter or anything else. It's 100% just an open and safe situation where they're able to help you to figure out exactly what's happening in your mind that you don't understand.
Yeah, I could agree. It's taken me a little bit to finally get to therapy, and I have my own journeys as to getting to this point. But bottom line is I chose therapy because I knew I needed help. I had a traumatic childhood. You've already heard bits and pieces. We haven't even, barely scratched the surface on some of the shit that I've said. Fun fact. But I got to a point whenever we were living in Texarkana, TK, I was just miserable and angry all the time. I was angry, I was upset, I was miserable, and I could not tell you why. I just knew I needed help, and clearly me trying to figure my crap out on my own wasn't working. Matt and I had some of our biggest arguments, biggest frustrations. I would say definitely one of our hardest. It was our hardest season of our marriage for sure. And I tried to do therapy there, but it was very difficult for multiple reasons, and it just didn't quite work out. And it took us coming back here for me to finally just kind of, funny enough, openly talk about therapy with coworkers.
And they were kind of able to point you towards it.
They were the ones who led me to my therapist.
And that's great.
They were the ones who encouraged me and went, oh my God, yes, therapy's great. Do it. You have to do it. I had another one who goes, do not be afraid to shop around. And even told me that she has one of her kids who goes through therapy, and she took her oldest to one therapist, and they had a little session, and then when they were done, she asked her daughter how she felt, and her daughter was like, this isn't really the one for me. So then they went to someone else, and her daughter immediately yes, this is the one for me. So I had strong, the most encouragement I've ever experienced for therapy, strangely enough, from my coworkers.
And that's so great because not everybody gets that.
No. So I actually, and this eventually led to my therapist, Tina, who I fucking love, and I cannot wait to go through my journey of how I got to her. So, yeah. Oh,
sorry, I had to pause for a second. My phone's giving me warnings.
Technical difficulties.
But yeah, that's great because, like I said, not a lot of people get that level of support. And I think that's one thing that we're going to kind of touch on tonight is that whether it be culturally, whether it be through your religion, whether it be through your household, or even your friend group, there are a lot of people that don't believe in therapy, that don't agree with therapy, that have their own issues with therapy, and they kind of push that onto others.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes it really difficult as well for some people to seek help. Or, like you said, sometimes people are afraid to shop around. They'll end up with one bad therapist, and they'll either stay with that therapist who continues to give them bad advice, or they never go back to therapy because of that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really good topic to kind of discuss a little bit more about and, dive into some of the nitty-gritty on why we do it and why we chose the ones that we chose.
So let's start with you. Since you've been in therapy for a little bit, we'll go with I think technically between the two of us, you have now been in therapy a little bit longer than me. Not by much.
Yeah. Give or take.
Not by much, but you have. So you get to go first.
Yay. Mine's fun. I started therapy about 11 years ago now, which is weird for me to think about that I have been in therapy off and on for over a decade. But
I didn't even think I realized that it had been that long.
Yeah, because I went to my first therapy session when I was maybe a junior in college. I know that Daniel and I were dating at the time, and he was the one who kind of helped to convince me of, hey, maybe you should do this. He was also the one to kind of help me to helped convince me that it was okay to get on anxiety meds and basically start my mental health journey when I was 19 going on 20. I might have been 20. But I went into the college and because they had the free mental health care for any students that were on campus. The only catch was that your therapist may also be a student.
I know what you're talking about. This actually is part of my journey because this has been a thing for a long time, and this is where I started my journey.
Was it really? I forgot about that.
Yep. Are you talking about where it's in one of the older buildings,
Yes.
but it's in like the second or third level right above the police station?
Yeah.
I know exactly where you went.
So it's a great program. It's really great because it helps a lot of students who need someone to talk to.
It also, FYI, if you probably were not aware of this, I'm so sorry for interrupting, but this is more so for any of our listeners who are parents who are going to college. This benefit, check with your university, does extend to your children. That's actually how I ended up because when I was in it at 13, I'm so sorry for taking over.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
That's what my mom did. She was a student, and so that's how we got it for free. Is she took me, and I could benefit from it. So it was more of like anyone. If you're not aware of this, if you are a parent, these services can extend to your children if you are a student going to school. So take advantage of that, folks.
100%. Yeah, and that's something that not a lot of people know too.
They don't think about it. It's not something you ask. You hear students, so you assume it stops at that level. But if you are a parent who is a student, your children can actually benefit for some of the free services.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm sorry. Continue. I'm so sorry.
You're fine. Yeah, so I started there, and the very first session was great. I had someone who I think was actually one of the teachers to the others that were learning how to become therapists. And she was very open with me. She was very direct. We kind of talked back and forth about a lot of the issues that I was having, which at that point it was focused mostly on my anxiety with a touch on depression. And then after that first meeting, she got a new job and left. So I now had to move to another therapist who was a student, not nearly as educated on the matter, which wouldn't have been an issue had I started there, I guess. But at that point, I now saw the two different types. And it was a very kind of basic therapy session of, and how does that make you feel? I didn't feel like I was having a conversation with someone. I felt like I was just being asked a lot of questions without any direction. But at the time, I was 19. I'd never done therapy before. I was already way outside of my comfort zone by talking about these very personal things in my life with someone who I don't know. And so I tried to continue it. I probably saw her, 4 more times before finally realizing that, this just isn't working for me. So I messaged them and I'm like, hey, while I really like this person, I don't think she's a great fit for me as a therapist. Do you have someone else I could speak to? And their response was, sorry, this is a part of their lesson and learning. We would very much like for you to stay with the same person so that way they can learn what they're doing wrong and improve by it. So not only did they make me stay with this person, but they then told them that I was having an issue with them as my therapist. And in my next therapy session, I was asked about that on how they could do better. And I'm like, that's not what therapy is.
Ooh.
This is uncomfortable because I already have social anxiety and I'm a people pleaser. And I felt way backed into a corner.
Yeah, you literally were trying to do something to make yourself feel better, and then you got pushed into, well, they're doing it for school, so could you stick around and give them feedback? And so then that people pleaser side of you kicks in and go, okay.
I'm like, it was so uncomfortable. It was so awkward. I could not be open with this therapist, which, I mean, honestly, if you can't be open with a therapist, nothing that you're doing in therapy is going to work. Because if you're not being open and honest and ready for real truths to smack you in the face, then there's not going to be any progress made. Yep. And there wasn't. So I ended up leaving that therapist, and the only thing that I got out of it was anti-anxiety meds. It was all that I got from that entire process. So fast forward, I ended up starting to see a therapist again, probably just after COVID kind of popped up and after my son was born.
Postpartum. I do remember you were experiencing a lot of postpartum between Alex almost having to go to the children's hospital and being put in the NICU for a week. You were also dealing with the complex emotions of being a new mom, trying to breastfeed and not being able to pump, and being a disappointment. Like, you were going through all of the
all the big feelings,
all of the big
on top of a global pandemic.
Yeah, so that's a lot, because even, I mean, we've already kind of gone over your birthing story. Just your birthing story was traumatic on its own. So it would make sense that you would need therapy in that time of your life.
Yeah. And I did. I really did, because, I mean, you had the global pandemic, you had being a new mom, you had the complete isolation from the pandemic and being a new mom, and the fact that I was now having to work from home and then having to go back into the office and feeling like I couldn't be there for my child and go to the office and keep up with all of my, house stuff and keep up with having a social life. And then you add on top of that, my work was kind of crumbling around me because it was just a terrible work environment. And so I finally reached out to BetterHelp. And BetterHelp, I highly recommend. We are not sponsored at all by anyone, but I highly recommend if you're just starting off on your journey. It's a good place to at least start when shopping around for therapists to get a feel for it. Just because there are so many options, and it kind of can at least help you put your foot in the water, and then maybe they can direct you from there. But I met with one woman there, and she was so much better than my first experience. And I think it also helped this time that I was a little bit more mature. I understood a little bit more about the fact that, I have some issues that I need to work with. And I knew that I was going to have to actually speak on those issues if I was going to get any information back.
Right.
There was still some stuff that I was kind of tight-lipped on, that I wasn't 100% ready to dive into. But I was a lot more open this time.
Yeah.
And I at least had a better experience on getting stuff back from this person. She had me, do a lot more worksheets. She asked me more about my family, about my religious beliefs, about everything and how that kind of played a role in my life. And then from there, I ended up moving on just because financially couldn't really afford it at that time. Yeah. So I had to take a break for a while, and then after my dad passed, I got back into it. But of course, at that point, a lot of the reason why I got back into it was I was searching for answers to questions such as, could I be bipolar? Could I have other issues that go on to a deeper level?
You went into this whole therapy journey on like a whole
nother plan. I wanted answers to questions more than I wanted someone to help me be okay. I wanted someone to figure out what was wrong with me on a science level, and then from there we can figure out how to address coping mechanisms, how to address grief and all of that. And it was a lot better of an experience for me. So all of that to be said, the reason why I decided to go to therapy to discuss all of this, because I'm a Christian, and I have been asked by other Christians, well, why didn't you just pray about it? Why do you need...
Have you really? I mean, I know I'm like shocked by this, and I shouldn't be. Like, I should not be shocked by this. But
it
like
every day,
wow.
It's almost like a cultural thing for Christians, and you see it in a lot of different religions. You see it in Mormonism, you see it in Catholicism. This belief that if you go to therapy, if you take medication for your ADHD, for your depression, anxiety, any of that. It's like a show of lack of faith, because you should be able to pray the depression away. You should be able to pray your fears away and not feel anxiety. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, yes, you can pray, and if that is God's will, he will free you from those feelings. But sometimes his will is for you to kind of go through crap. And yeah, that sucks. But it can be, in my opinion, you know, from what I've seen, that can be used for his glory. It can be used to help other people. It can be used...
Good example of it being used for his glory for the Christians is, think about all of the born-again Christians who've gone to jail.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about the
ones
I
actually know a couple of those.
Yeah, honestly, I think the one that you and I both know for sure, because I was only in y'all's church for a short amount of time. It's the gentleman with the 3 kids, the youngest with a lot of the health issues. Yeah. He is very open and very vocal. I went to prison. I was in prison and I found God there. It was
not little crimes. The man committed armed robbery, theft,
and you would never
dark stuff, and you'd never know it.
Nope.
He knew God. He loved God. He loved his family. He loved helping anybody he could.
He's a deacon, right?
He was a deacon. He's now at a different church. I don't know where they go now.
I didn't know they left.
Yeah, they left a while ago, but that's, you know, whole other story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing, is sometimes you're meant to go through the hard stuff.
It's the only way for you to get the testimony you need for, and this is coming from someone who, again, I would say many, many, many times, I am not a Christian. I just practice more in the sense of spiritualism. I believe in all religions are valid. So for a Christian standpoint, you have to have your testimonies to be able to bring more people to Christ, and who's better suited to provide testimonies than folks who have been through hell and back.
And even if we're not able to bring someone to Christ, sometimes we're just helping somebody. I mean, look at you. You're not brought to Christ, but I feel like some of the stories that I've been through can help you, because we can discuss about the fact that we both went through some crap as children. We both experienced some specific types of abuse as children, and we're able to kind of discuss that.
And I also recognize how these things can help you become closer to your one's faith.
Exactly. And so by me talking to a therapist, by being able to take, you know, certain medications for my depression and anxiety, that's not a lack of faith that God can take these away if I just pray hard enough. That's me knowing that, yes, I'm going to continue to pray that he eases these burdens on me, and know that he may ease those burdens on me by providing me someone to talk to, like a therapist, by providing me medication that helps with the chemical imbalance in my brain.
So,
you know, sometimes you just need those extra things.
Let me ask you, for the religious folks out there, when you were searching for your new therapist, did you specifically make it a point that you wanted your therapist to either, one, be religious or Christian?
I did, actually. And that's not something that I think every Christian necessarily needs to do, but I do think it is very beneficial, because
you did it so you could be closer.
Things. Yeah, I would like to be closer to Christ, and I feel like, you know, having a therapist that is also close to Christ can be helpful. But also, there are certain anxieties that I had growing up, you know, regarding the end of times, regarding my actual salvation, that having a therapist who understands kind of the base point of that, it's very beneficial when discussing those things, as well as feeling certain guilt over doing things. Being able to discuss that with a therapist is also very helpful. And if you have a therapist who's not a Christian, while they may try to empathize with you,
they don't have the same level of understanding.
Exactly. So it is, again, everyone has their own personal choice when it comes to a therapist. But when it comes to your religion, I do feel that it is beneficial, whether it be Christian or whatever religion you are, maybe find someone to talk to who is knowledgeable on those levels as well.
I think that's a really good point to keep in mind. And yes, you can specifically search for therapists and that be a requirement. In my search, I've seen not atheist as a request for a therapist, Christian, Muslim, spiritualist. I've seen all kinds of stuff whenever it comes to therapists and what they specialize in. Some will specialize in LGBTQ, be an ally. Others will not have that because that's not what they specialize in. So it's a wide world out there.
There are many different flavors of therapists out there. Oh, I promise you, if you've thought about it, if you think you need help for it, there is someone out there for you. I feel like a really bad salesman for therapy.
Which is sad because you allowed a salesperson in your house out of pure sympathy and people pleasing taking over.
She was new and she just needed to show off the fact that she could do a demonstration to her general manager. And I was like, just come in here and vacuum my floor for 45 minutes. It's fine. I couldn't say no. She looked so desperate. Don't come knocking on my house because I may not buy something, but I'll at least let you in. Great.
Just give her the puppy dog sad eyes and it won't take much. She'll be like, yes, come in, my child.
Again, one of the reasons I'm in therapy. I cannot say no.
It's a problem.
Anywho, so that's a lot of my story. I know we've kind of touched base at least for a second there on your story, talking about, children being allowed into the university's therapy program.
Yep.
That is something that you actually went through before you started your adult journey into mental health.
Yeah, so
tell us a little bit about that.
I can technically say that I went through child therapy for a little bit. So,
which is so interesting to me.
Yeah. Fun fact, this was not of my own free will. This was kind of forced upon me by my mother, feeling like I needed to go to therapy. But
she
to be
not
fair,
have been wrong.
and it was one of the few rare attempts of her trying to be a somewhat decent mom, I guess. Because it was during, my parents divorced when I was 8, technically speaking, but the divorce battle lasted for years.
See, that is one thing I'm glad I never dealt with because I know that those are horrendous.
They are, and they are very traumatic, and I did not register how traumatic divorce is on children, especially divorces that last for very long time, especially when it is over custody battles, which are some of the longest court battles you face as a divorcing parent sometime. And I didn't realize how traumatic it was until someone that I knew had a fear of their child being taken away and then they potentially having to fight for custody, and that triggered something in me that I was just like did not know was a thing in me. Like that was the first time I had ever been triggered by something that was like, what the fuck?
It's like, where did that come from? It's I have an issue.
Yeah,
that's deep.
Yeah, very much so.
I felt that about certain things of like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to my therapist.
Yeah. So
English, you'll get there.
It was very traumatic. So my experience was my mom taking me to therapy in, I guess, her attempt of trying to be helpful. However, I was at the age of 13, and at this point, I was already slightly suspicious of my mother being manipulative of the court battles. And so my poor little therapist, I'm pretty sure she was a student.
Oh no.
Bless her heart. Bless her poor little heart. I was not the one for her. Not the one for her. Not that I was being bad. It was I didn't answer any questions. I purposefully derailed the conversations. I was just like trying to, as a kid, distract this therapist to not ask any questions about my house situation for the fear. I'm 13. Okay. I have to specify that I'm 13 at this point. I had a legit fear that my mother could ask my therapist what we were talking about in therapy, and that she would then use that against my dad in court for custody. That is what my 13-year-old brain really thought was going to be happening with this therapist. So I, like, at one point we did a whole like play thing. I played my saxophone as a distraction. Like, it was a true to form, like, I am not opening up about this.
Yeah.
I do not want to be here. I do not feel safe doing this, and it's nothing against her as a therapist. It was, I truly felt,
you were afraid of your mom.
I had a legit fear of my mom using any of this against my dad.
That's
because
heartbreaking.
I had already seen cases of it.
Mm-hmm.
I already knew the level of manipulation she would go into. This is, me not knowing anything about HIPAA laws or anything like that. But all I knew was she's my parent, therefore, as my mother and my legal guardian, she can ask these questions and they can answer these questions. And I was not going to give her any form of ammunition that could potentially get used against my dad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my first journey into therapy. It was not even
That's
me
thing.
thing.
Especially like as a 13-year-old, I couldn't imagine being put in that position, feeling like anything that you say can be used as ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine. I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
Yep. So that's one of the crappy parts. So that was my real first taste of therapy, and it was, I was not in a trusting place. And again, it was not something that I asked for. It was something that my mother felt I needed and kind of pushed me into it. Yeah. So that didn't help.
Well, I mean,
either.
Again, we just kind of go back to the point of therapy does nothing if you're not ready for therapy.
Correct.
Yeah.
And as a angsty teenager who is trying to figure out what the hell's going on and is going through changes of their body and the drama of adults and just everything I was going through, no, my lips were sealed tight, my friend. So then we heavily fast forward to 2021.
Here.
I did not try to do therapy again until I lived in TK and I worked for AT&T.
Wow. That's a huge jump.
And all because of my situation at 13, that kind of put this fear in me that I couldn't trust this person.
Yeah.
And if I can't trust you, I'm not going to talk about things, because I had a fear if I talked about things that the therapist might feel like I am severely depressed and might hurt myself, when even though I have had suicidal thoughts, while I have self-harmed, sorry, trigger warning somewhere, I forget to do those things.
Warning.
I know. I'm so sorry for anyone that this triggers, but I have had these thoughts. Yeah. But I have never once gotten to that point or stage of wanting to unalive myself. Yeah. It's more of the thought of being so depressed that what if I just, as I put it, disappear and never existed.
That thought process of, I don't want to die, I just don't want to exist.
Yeah. Or what if I just left my phone, got in a car and drove type, like just disappeared. Like that's the extent of my depressive thoughts. Ending my life, I can't. I start crying because I'm like, because like then I start to feel bad, and I think about like the images of the funeral, and then I think about the people that do care about me, and then I would hurt them, and then it derails me, so then I just start crying.
Well,
so it's a whole thing.
That's good. So you've got your limit.
I do have my limit.
But I mean, I understand what you're saying of when you're a 13-year-old child forced into therapy for a custody battle, you automatically start to have trust issues with your therapist because you don't know if what you're going to tell this person is staying between the two of you or if it's going to the court system against your dad. So now the next time that you go into therapy, you still have those trust issues.
I'm
because
already
now,
guarded.
Exactly. Now you've got real issues. You know, so now you're afraid, okay, is this staying between us or are you going to send me to a mental hospital?
Which then leads me to my second situation. So my second therapist, she was not a bad therapist, but it was not a therapist that I kind of searched out for, did research on. It was more so, oh, my coworker is going to her, and so I know that my insurance takes... I know that she takes my insurance.
It was convenient.
It was convenient is what it was. And I know I need therapy. So let's go ahead and do this. It's convenient. I did that and the therapist was fine. However, I did not feel comfortable because the room was it was fine, but it felt sterile.
You didn't feel comfortable. You felt like you were in a doctor's office.
Yeah, even though it wasn't set up like a doctor's office, I still felt like I was in a doctor's office. So I very much like closed off and like my purse was like in my lap and I'm just kind of like nervously fidgeting and talking and stuff like that and everything. So I did that for a little bit and I eventually stopped because one, it got expensive. $150 a session is
a lot
to do, especially when you're wanting to do it like every other week or something because you know you need to talk stuff out and you know you need to work through issues. But then the other thing that caused me to stop going to this therapist was the coworker that I had that was going to her loved this therapist, the therapist for her. But she had shared some things with the therapist and the therapist had made such comments as because of everything that she was going through, which to be fair, the woman was going through a lot. The therapist made a comment that she was borderline almost getting committed at one point.
Yeah.
And so when you hear that, I'm like, oh no, what if I say something that's just too crazy and they want to do that to me? And I'm like, but I'm not.
Yeah.
So then I just stopped. So now we've reached my third therapist. Also short-lived. It was through BetterHelp. It is a very good tool if you are first getting into therapy and you're kind of trying to explore and just kind of figure it out. Sure.
Yeah.
I didn't really give it much effort, primarily because it was also fairly expensive to do without insurance.
Without insurance, yeah, it can get pricey real quick.
And I just couldn't afford to do that for, like, to pay for that monthly subscription to be able to have that therapist. So I did it for a month and let it drop. But when I did talk to her, even though it was over the phone, that was part of the reason. It was over the phone, one. I don't like talking on the phone.
Yes.
So my third therapist, that's all we did is we talked over the phone through BetterHelp. And it wasn't video. And I hated that. Because I never felt like and then the other thing is I never quite felt like I was necessarily being heard.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like she was just there to listen, but not necessarily hear me
She
out.
wasn't listening to understand. She was listening to respond.
Yeah, pretty much. So it felt hollow. That was my experience with BetterHelp. Like I said, it lasted for a month. It got expensive with no insurance. I did not even attempt to shop around because at that point, I didn't know you could shop around for therapists.
I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. If the
makes
therapist
sense.
you talk to is not actually benefiting you, is not helping you, you can leave. It's like a doctor. If the doctor you're seeing is not running the right tests, is not checking out the right stuff, you can find a new doctor.
Yeah.
It's the same process.
So I didn't realize any of that up until later. And so now we have reached my fourth therapist. I fucking love Tina. Good God, I love that woman. I'm so glad I found her, and I hope she listens to this episode, and I hope she hears this, because good God, I fucking love her. She just
sounds so fitting for you, and I love
Oh my God. So now we're at my fourth therapist, the one that is the one for me. I love it. So how I discovered her was, as mentioned before in this episode, coworkers. I had just started my job. I was probably a few months in, finally had benefits kick in. I was like, fuck yeah. And I saw that mental health was part of those benefits. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. But I didn't know how much it was. And so I looked up our plan and I saw that it was like therapists in your area, and it was like $30. I was like,
whoa.
I can go to therapy for like $30 a visit.
Let me tell you, if I could see my therapist for $30, I'd probably see them a lot more often.
So I was like, okay, I was like, with this, I have to go to therapy now. Like, there's no excuse. Like, at that point, I told myself there's no excuse. So I started talking to some coworkers of mine. And I, first off, love the place I work. A lot of the people I've gotten to work with, I very immediately felt comfortable around, very immediately felt like I could relate and connect with them, which is huge for me. I've never really had that in a work environment. So it made it easier for me to ask questions, especially when I heard some of the coworkers talking about, like, yeah, my therapist, and people, like, other people talking with each other about, like, yeah, them going to therapy and stuff. I was like,
this is a very healthy environment.
What is going on? And so I started talking, and that's when I found out, like, I had one coworker, she was like, yeah, do therapy, it's amazing. And I had several of them say it's okay to shop around. They told me their experiences. And then I got to talking to one coworker, and she told me about her therapist and kind of how she does things. And I was kind of like, I kind of like how this therapist sounds. I was like, can I get like her, like, what her name is or her number or something? And my coworker said, yeah, sure, definitely. Gave me her number. I very quickly reached out, set up an appointment, had a consultation with Tina over the phone, because I tried to go through the video webpage that she uses, and for some reason it doesn't work on the phone well. So I have to do it on a laptop.
Yeah.
Whatever, a minor inconvenience. But for my first time talking to her, I had to be over the phone. And for the first time ever, I truly I felt comfortable with her. I felt like I could talk to her like I was just talking to like I was talking to you or one of my one of the girlfriends. It was so natural, and I didn't have to work at it. And she's very accepting. Eventually we finally got it set up to where I can do video sessions, and that's what I prefer. I don't like going into an office because that feels, it's uncomfortable for me, because it's not my space, it's someone else's space.
And when I'm in, it's also very impractical, especially in today's day and age.
Yeah, I was like, I don't have time to take out of my work schedule to then go to to drive somewhere, to sit in an office, to do a session. You already
commute to work, and then having to commute to a therapist, it gets a lot.
So that was one of my first requirements, is it had to be a virtual.
Yeah.
So
same.
Requirement one was it needed to be virtual. My second requirement is I wanted it to be video. I didn't want to talk over the phone. I didn't want to do the whole chat thing. I wanted to do a video call. I need you to see my face, and I want to see your face.
And I feel like that's also beneficial because they're able to see your tics.
Yes.
See your expressions. And like my therapist, she's partially deaf. I say partially. She is deaf, but she has like hearing aids and stuff that kind of assist. But because of that, she relies heavily on my facial expressions. And so video is very beneficial for that.
I love video. And so now that I'm on video session, she does all of her stuff from the comfort of her home.
That's so
great.
I
love it even more because
both of you are comfortable.
She has taken me to her screened in porch. We were in her kitchen today, actually.
That's nice.
We were in her kitchen. Usually we're in her bedroom. Sometimes her bedroom's messy. She's like, I apologize. I'm like, I'm fine. You feel
like you're hanging out with someone rather than being diagnosed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
I have shared things with her that I've never actually gotten to feel comfortable enough to share with a therapist. I mean, shit, I was late to coming over today because my therapy session went a little too long because we were just talking. Because that's the other thing is sometimes my therapy sessions are, all right, where were we last time? Let's pick up from there. And we're slowly going through the family journey story thing. And we've kind of paused by accident. A lot of stuff has happened at work, okay?
Yeah.
But I will say I talked to her before we get into all of this. I talked to her in like November time. I didn't actually go, okay, I really need to like set in stone back like regularly scheduled sessions.
March when you did that, right?
It was March when things at work were going crazy. I was stressing about my exam. Things were happening with us here.
We paused on this.
It was
crap happened in March.
March completely derailed, and that was when I finally went, I can't just keep doing this on my own. I need help.
Yeah.
I texted her. Actually, I texted her daughter because her daughter's her assistant. And went, I would like to set up bi-weekly appointments, preferably on Mondays or Wednesdays, and if we can do it in the evenings, that works best for me. So I have standing therapy appointments every other Monday from 6 to 7. Like, it is a standing on my calendar. It is like that.
Yeah.
And if we have to move it around, her daughter will text me and be like, can we like move it around? And I'm super flexible, very flexible. I'm like, yeah, we will work with this. I'm willing to work with them on it. There was one time completely forgot I had therapy and missed it. My therapist was super nice and didn't charge me for missing,
which is really great because there are some therapists out there that like, no, it does not matter.
Exactly. She has asked me what my preferred method of communication is, and I said video. I hate talking on the phone. I don't really like messaging because it's not a natural conversation for me because I will like send you multiple things at the same go. She really does try to work with, we're going to talk video because that's what I prefer. Yeah. She has said, if you don't want to talk about it quite yet, we don't have to. She hasn't pushed me. She's called me out on my bullshit. She's called me a self-starter. And I went, what? No. She called me a self-starter one day and I went, I've never been called that before. What? And she's like, what? Yeah, you are. And I was like, how?
Yep.
How am I a self-starter?
And I love that about therapy because they teach you these new words. They teach you about yourself.
So this is how it went. Is I explained to her, like, for me, a self-starter is like, I see like a business person or like the ones who are going out there and really starting stuff. And she was like, no. A self-starter is anyone who starts something just because you can and you go for it.
Think about you and your plants. Think about us in this podcast.
And that's
you
when I
are
brought,
a self-starter.
And that's where I brought up exam. I had to stop and go.
I mean, even this podcast was all you. It was months of you hounding me about it.
I really had to stop and go, holy shit, I am. Because I had to go, wait, if you think about how self-starters are, I applied for my position at work expecting to get a no.
Yeah.
And I got a yes. I didn't have to get my certificate. I didn't have to get my certificate. It was just a bonus to make it easier for me to get promoted. There's several things that I've never had to do, but I went, why the fuck not? I picked up photography.
And see, with therapy, you were able to figure all of this stuff out about yourself.
Yes. She has helped me out being very encouraging of when I have self-doubt of like being very positive. And she has said shit to me that I didn't even know I needed to hear until she said it. I went, I really needed to hear that. Thanks.
I mean, and that's the thing about therapy is it's so much more than just diving into what your parents did to you. It's so much more than just diving into trauma. Sometimes it's literally just about talking about yourself, talking about your day, and letting them kind of help you to figure out why you do certain things, who you are on a deeper level.
You say finding out who you are on a deeper level and everything. We'll use today, because I had therapy today, so I'm fresh. Good example. I was telling her how Matt and I went on a date night on Friday, and one of the things we started doing on date nights, which I think you and Daniel should do, is we will look up questions that are meant for couples to ask each other. They're thought-provoking questions. So a good question that was asked is that Matt asked, and Matt and we had to answer, is what is something that we do that makes you feel the closest with me?
I like that.
Shit like that. And so we have to answer, and it's really good. It's really good because it causes you to sit there and think. And it could be something as, dumb as, do you prefer white chocolate or milk chocolate, and explain why. Or it could be something as very deep as, what is something that I can do for you what can I do to help support you in this season of our relationship?
I like that.
Good stuff like that. Backstory to tell my therapist, I was telling her this, and one of the questions that was asked was, what is a trait that you don't want to lose? And I very quickly went, my empathy.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that if I am not the empathetic person that I am, I would not be the person that I am. I would not be
your empathy
me.
Defines you, in my opinion.
And my therapist went, that's a byproduct of your childhood, right? And I went,
called out?
Oh,
wow. What? Excuse me.
I was like, because my brain went, for you to be empathetic, you have had to have a caring household. So I was like, yeah, totally, from my very traumatic childhood. And she was like, no, because of what you went through, it made you more empathetic. So your childhood made you this empathetic person. I was just like, what the? Yeah. I got called out today.
I feel called out.
I got called out today.
Tell your therapist thank you, I think.
You just did. If she listens.
I feel like I should be, I don't know how
I
feel about that.
She very much so. I fucking love
therapy. It's amazing.
I loved it. When you find the therapist, your therapist, I kid you not.
It's a whole journey. They will call you out.
But also that's how I know you found a good therapist for yourself, is when you're wanting to talk about it to others.
Yes.
Because I have talked about me going to therapy to my mother-in-law, Donna. I have mentioned to my mother-in-law, Kelly, that I'm in therapy, and that I've mentioned her in therapy a few times. And Kelly made a comment one time, was like, oh, you're probably saying all bad stuff. I was like, no, actually, I have expressed to my therapist that you are one of the main women that I look up to, and you're the first person to have ever provided me any form of maternal love as an adult. So be known, you have played a huge part in me being the person I am today. And I think I might have made her want to cry a little bit. But I very much talk to other people. I'm going to therapy. Or I'd be like, yeah, I have therapy at this time. I'd be like, I can do it. I have therapy. I love saying.
No shame in the therapy
No
game.
shame. And I told my dad, good example. We are rambling and we need to wrap this up. I'm so sorry. I'm done terrible today. Ooh.
You're just on a roll.
Because when I like to talk about something that I'm passionate about,
and that's
I
good.
do. And I'm so passionate about people finding their therapist.
And I think that's the thing that we really want to get across to our listeners at this point is therapy, while it may not be for everybody, because I understand some people just don't have that mentality to be able to sit down and talk about
a good example is my dad. I mentioned I was in therapy, and my dad's first response is, do you even need that? And I went, yes. Yeah. And my dad is one of those people of just let it go. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, Dad, I told him, I have said this I said it to my dad over the phone a long time when I started this. I was like, Dad, I tried to do this on my own and it didn't work out. I've reached the point where I need help, and that's what I'm doing is I'm getting help so I can be better.
I mean, there are certain type of people like your dad.
He's been more accepting though, because
that's good.
Because my therapist has given me stuff to try for us to work on better things, and I flat out have told him like, yeah, my therapist recommended that we do this.
That's good.
And he hasn't said anything, so I think he's just kind of
accepting that it's happening.
Yeah, and I mean it's
there
doing
are people like that can literally let something happen to them and it rolls off their back and they forget about it. I don't understand it. Nope. I'm impressed by it, but I am not one of those people.
Nope.
And I think that's the thing that those types of people need to realize is that not everybody has the capability to just forget about something traumatic that happened.
Yep.
And that everybody processes things differently, and that some people, such as ADHD people like me and Taylor, we don't have the capability to just release things. Our brain finds something and holds on to it for dear life, even if that thing is traumatic and painful. And we need a therapist to discuss it. So I do think therapy is good for everybody to try at least once, maybe twice, to try out a different therapist and kind of maybe try out a different technique. But I do understand, it's not necessarily for everyone. But all of this to be said, I do think it is very beneficial and that we shouldn't let other people's opinions, our religious beliefs, our cultural beliefs stand in the way of something that could truly benefit a future generation of people. Because if you learn how to get rid of your trauma, or at least how to better handle it, it teaches our next generation how to do that.
I'll also add a fun little caveat that most people don't think about. Fun fact, therapists are probably just as messed up as we are.
Oh, yeah.
They're just able to use their own experiences. I'll use Tina, my therapist, as an example. Also was raised by a narcissistic mother, so she totally understands my feelings and where I'm at and is very proud of me and congratulates me. She married her husband at a young age. She was 15 when they got together, so she understands being in a long-term only person relationship, and she's ADHD. So
you're talking to yourself for therapy.
Pretty much. And yes, she has a house full of animals.
This seems very good for you.
I fucking love Tina, okay? I fucking love this woman. This is my therapist. I just, shout from I think she can practice anywhere. She mentioned she had clients who were from Canada.
Wow.
So I don't know if that means that she was helping them while they lived in Canada or they just moved to the States and they were from Canada. I don't know.
That's cool.
But I know she's at least licensed in the state of Texas. So if anyone wants to know, that resource, just, message us on one of our social medias or comment, and I will hands down, share her shit. I fucking love this woman.
And I'm sure that with this episode release, we'll be releasing some stuff on our social medias regarding mental health, places to go to for you to be able to talk to. Just because, we've done a lot of research to be able to find the therapists that we like. We understand it is a difficult process.
Took us forever.
So we'd like very much so to provide our listeners with resources that helped us, so that way maybe they can help you as well.
Yeah. So with that, we really hope you enjoyed this episode. Sorry for the ramblings.
Sorry, Daniel.
The choice to do therapy is definitely a personal one. Our goal of this episode was not to convince you to do therapy, even though it might have come off of that, but to be more open and honest about why we do it and some of the truths behind why some people may avoid it. Whether you choose to take it on or not is completely up to you and should not be influenced by the views of others.
And if you would like to ask us questions about our journey into therapy, share your personal journey into therapy, or maybe even share with us why you don't personally believe or want to do therapy, you can share those stories with us at theunstableBrew@gmail.com. We are definitely willing to read. not willing, but we
will
read. We will read all stories that come into us, so that way we're able. Let me start that over.
English.
English. We promise to read all the emails that you share with us, so that way if God Almighty, I'm struggling. We're at the end and I'm falling asleep. Try this again. 3rd time's the charm.
I'm proud of you.
I'm just going to read straight from it. We promise to read all the emails and share any that may fit into a future episode. Feel free to do that as well. God Almighty. Quit.
No, we're
you
not.
Want to take over?
We're not out of practice at all, folks.
I'm sorry. It's been 3 months. We're going to read your emails. If you share anything with us, please feel free to do so.
Oh my God.
Take over.
Also, to all of that chaos, whatever the hell that was, if you would ever like to just share with us a story simply to share it but not have it shared on a future episode, please feel free to do that as well. Simply let us know that the email is for venting purposes only and to not be shared on the show. We will respect your request because boundaries matter, people.
Heck yeah, they do.
We get so excited.
I know.
I feel like the first person, like the people who ends up listening to these episodes have come back as soon as they hear that. I just can imagine someone in the background going, ah!
And if you'd like to follow us on social media, we are available on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X now. We are on X now.
Are we really?
We will be by the time this is released.
Oh,
You can find us under The Unstable Brew, and we will be posting on these platforms any promo videos or fun content.
Remember, we are available for your listening pleasure or displeasure on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can even watch us on YouTube. Please like, share, download to your heart's content, and please tell people about us. We would love that.
Tell everybody. And we will be back next time with more unstable content.
Bye.